Okay, welcome back to episode 13, lucky for some, and we're about to launch into Fans Pulse Lap 2, another topic as voted for by you. A reminder to take part, look out for the nominated, the candidate discussion topics published on our Facebook page on a Sunday night. It takes literally 20 seconds of your time to click the link, select the up to 4 of those discussion topics and lock in your vote, and we will pick up the top 3 or 4 on that week's episode, I should say. And a reminder, please, to make a little bit more use, please, of our dedicated WhatsApp number 0333 772 4046. So many of you use WhatsApp to talk to family and friends and work colleagues. How about talking to us at 360 Speedway? Submit your question in text form, or press that little record button and just verbalise your message or your question. I'll put them to the lads if we get any questions. Otherwise, I'll consider your comments or your messages within our weekly download of viewer messages. So, gents, let's move on then with Fans Pulse Lap 2. We're going to give some focus to what we're calling last heat heroes or last heat decider heroes. So in Speedway, I'm sure you'll agree, I hope you agree, there's nothing less dramatic, less tense than a meeting going down to a final heat, especially if there's something resting on the outcome, you know, be that ideally a trophy or a league title or something like that. And I think we've all been involved and all seen firsthand just how much excitement that kind of scenario can generate. But my question, what I wanted to talk about though was, and let's talk about, well, I'm sure we'll talk about and identify some specific riders as we have this discussion, but in terms of attributes or skill sets, what sort of profile would a team manager look to? So when a team manager goes to nominate the riders to line up at the tapes for that last heat decider, what sort of attributes would you expect a team manager to be looking for? Carol Johnson, you have been a team manager. What sort of rider attributes in your 1 to 7 would you be looking for those big pressure heats, Carol?
Well, obviously, you'd always look to your number 1 because they're supposedly going to be the guaranteed bet for you. But it all depends on how the night's gone. You can see by different riders their body language, of whether they're really up for a last heat decider if you need them to. There was certainly some that I would expect to handle pressure better than what they did. When you get into them positions, and it's one of them. Like I say, if they've had a good night on track, they're the ones that sort of step forward and put me in. You know, if they've had an off night, even though they're probably one of your heat leaders, they sort of disappeared into the background, and it's like almost they don't want that pressure. But I think there's certain riders that obviously thrive under that sort of pressure. You know, like, to be fair, like Ben tonight, Ben's one of them. I think he thrives under being put under that pressure. If I was to say to Ben, I want you to go out there and win this heat for me, he would do whatever he could to try and win that heat. It doesn't always work, but his mindset would be, I'm going to go out and win it. And that's not just because I've asked him to, that's because he wanted to win it for the team. And there's certain other riders that I've had, like Bradley Wilson-Dean. He was another one, really good under pressure. You put him in a pressure situation and he was very good, even though he was probably a bit erratic. He sort of seemed to handle the pressure. Whereas I've put Hans in pressure positions and he's sort of crumbled at times, even though he's been in that, been on the world stage, and you would expect him to, but everybody's human, aren't they? You know, everybody feels pressure in a different way. You don't want to be that person to let your team down or let your teammates down and let your supporters down. So, it's a very difficult one. I always used to used to gauge everybody in their last 2 races. Right, who's really going well, who looks good, who's improving, rather than just, they've had a couple of off races, who's gone out and won two, or pulled a win in a second but looked fast. So you always judge it on certain differences during the meeting, I think.
Nigel, you two have pulled on a team manager's jacket or hat at one stage, Nigel. And could you be swayed, Nigel, or should a team manager be swayed by the enthusiasm and the confidence of a rider? So if a rider came up to you and said, look, I want this, I want to do this, regardless of how they've scored necessarily in the meeting, is that a characteristic that a team manager would look for?
Well, you would, but at the end of the day, if you've got two lads that scoring big points, you're going to go with them, aren't you? You're going to go with the lads that scoring the points, and whether they can stand the pressure or not, get out there and get it done, do the job what you're here for, and I never found it a problem. I know in my riding days, in Stoke's length years, the team wasn't very good, and we seemed to have a lot of last-minute deciders, and it puts a lot of pressure on you as a rider, because obviously you want to win it for your supporters and your team. So, me and Eric Monahan, we used to do quite well, really, and there was a lot of pressure going out in that race, but then there was a lot of I don't know what the word is. If you won that race and you won the meeting, you got all the accolades to go with it. So, I don't know. It's very hard. I just think your top two riders on the night, if they're going and they're scoring big points, you generally would go with them, wouldn't you?
That would make sense. That would make sense, yeah. Because you know what, Nigel? If you didn't, you would be criticised forever by your supporters, wouldn't you?
Well, a team manager will get slaughtered whatever he does, won't he? Yeah. It's very easy after the event to say, oh, you should have done this. Nobody's willing to run up to you beforehand and say, oh, you should put him in, you should put him in. It's afterwards they all come and tell you what you should have done. It's like the lottery, isn't it? If we all knew them numbers, we'd put them on but we don't, and we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody knows what's going to happen. So you can only go with your own judgment, what you feel, and you feel is the right thing to do. I know at Stoke, when they had quite a decent top three, Robbie Kessler, Paul Pickering, I think Steckman was there as well, Jan. And I know one night, Jan Steckman and Robbie Kessler, I think both are on maximums. Picker's always got a lot of points, but he wasn't on a maximum that night. And I put Robbie in and Jan in it. And Pickers, he wasn't very happy at all. He wasn't happy at all, because you asked me every other week to do it. Why aren't I doing it this week and that? But hey, what can you do? You put your top two men in. That's all you can do, isn't it? Yeah. All you can do. Really.
Yeah. Robbo, you must have found yourself over the years in some of those last seat deciders, or with something on the line. Ideally, did you manage to keep a cool head, Stuart? How did you approach that sort of situation?
You just get out and do what you've got to do. I mean, what it's all about, it's about confidence. If you're confident, then you'll go and do it. Because a couple of occasions that stand out with me. I remember being with Newcastle there, and George English would come and ask me if we had last heat. He'd say, "Do you want it?" And if I felt confident, I would say, "Yeah, I'll win this. I'll go and do this, no problem." And I would. If I wasn't confident, I'd say no. I would say put Richie Warren or whoever it might be, Rennie back, depending on the teammates. I mean, put them in. I think they've got the edge on me tonight. And he would listen to me. He was pretty good, and we would take it in. But when you're confident, I remember saying to George, "Yeah, put me in. I'll win this," and I would. I did. It's just purely confidence. Is that the word? The whole sport's about confidence, and if you have got the confidence and you're riding high, you will win. And it's really difficult to get that confidence level and maintain it, because obviously things happen, but and they can drop quick. But when you got it, it's great. And I managed to have it for a couple of seasons in the early 2000s, from late 90s, early 2000s. I had a pretty good run. and my confidence was pretty high, you know, and I was kind of getting towards being on the world stage. I was doing world championship rounds and that kind of thing, and it was all great. But then the money just dried up. I couldn't afford to do it. I had to, as far as the world championships, I had to pull out of them and stop doing them and just try and concentrate on the British rounds and my British clubs, because my Polish club, the last time I raced in Poland was when I broke my back, and I didn't go back up there again after that. I did a little bit of Swedish league. Didn't really have the engines. I would take my UK engines and never worked out there. You couldn't do that, but I never had the money to buy engines to use in Sweden. So that's all part of it. You know, you're confident in yourself and your equipment. You know, it's a big parcel. And if you're confident in it, you will win.
Stuart, I don't know if you managed to pick up some of last week's episode, but in that period, in that couple of seasons that you referred to, where you were riding at sort of optimal level and you were uber confident, etc., did you ever see anything in slow motion? Nigel was talking last week about when you're in that zone and you're at that level, that things open up for you and you visualise things in slow motion. Nigel, can you explain that to Stuart?
Yeah. What I was saying, Stuart, was Rod Hunter was one telling me years ago, and you knew what a trapper Rod was, wasn't he? Everybody knows Rod Hunter was a gator, and Rod used to reckon he could see the tapes going up in like slow motion, if you like, everything happening in slow motion. And I can remember myself one year, I don't know what year it was, and I qualified for the British final that year, and everything seemed to happen really in a little bit of slow motion from the start. When you were lining somebody up to pass them, the gaps seemed to appear. Well, everything seemed to happen in slow motion, and you had a lot of time to make a decision. I don't know, just that one year when I felt like that, I can remember. 1 year, that's all, and it just all seemed to come together that year.
I don't know about slow motion, but you can just. I felt like when I was up there, I could just predict things. You know, it's sort of the same thing. You could predict it. You could see things happening, and you knew they were going to happen before they happened. You know, like it just everything just would work. I don't know. I don't really the slow motion thing. Yeah,
I don't know.
I know a few times when I crashed, it felt like I was going in slow motion. I know that.
Yeah, but the other thing, what you've talked about, Stuart, is one thing what stands out among it all is confidence, isn't it? Confidence.
That's what it's all about. And when I was riding, I went to see a sports psychologist for a while after one of my injuries, and they would just the things they would talk about, and they would get you, you know, there's like triggers and things like that to get you going, and it helps get your confidence up. And I mean, I was past my best at this stage, but it did help bring me back a lot as well. It would have been nice to have known the guy sort of 15 or so years earlier, to have learned a bit more about that side of it, because that's what it's all about. It's the psychology of it. It's confidence. Your psychology is better than other riders, and you are going to win. You know, that's how it is. You see yourself going into the corner first, so you get there first from the start line and all that type of stuff, and it does work. It's when your confidence is high, it will just happen for you now.
I do find that whole sports psychology thing really fascinating. Carol, a few episodes ago, we talked about, as you might remember, different tricks and things that riders might get up to on track to gain an advantage or put off their opponents or outsight them, etc. I just wonder, bringing it back to this topic, last heat heroes and big pressure races, wouldn't that be the optimal time to pull out some of these tricks, Carol?
Yeah, it would. Normally what you find is, though, your boys that are in that last heat decider are pretty focused, but yeah, you do. You sort of, and because you're obviously, you want that win, it's one of them, do a little roll at the start, or when you're positioning your bike, your handlebars are on that white line, or you try and nick a little bit more, while the referee, while your start marshal turns his back, and you move over a little bit more, so, and then that puts the rider off who's next to you, because he's like no, come on, you know, move him over. But yeah, there's always a little bit of gamesmanship, isn't there? And I think riders knew what they was up to, what other riders were up to. Every rider had a bit of a tell, didn't he, what he was going to do at certain times. You know, and I think they're certainly aware of them, and that little bit of gamesmanship at the starting tape. You know, maybe you didn't pull up to the tapes as quick as the others, and they're set there ready. You know, and you sort of you left it a little bit longer, and it's all then taking their mind off it. Trying to break their focus.
Yeah.
But, yeah, very difficult nowadays because riders are so focused in them positions.
They're mentally tough, aren't they, Speedway riders? Carol, I'll stick with you. Just one final question on this. Either someone that you've ridden with or someone that you've managed, but you know, which can you name a couple of riders that would never let you down in that sort of last seat decider situation?
Would never let me down. Obviously, you know, Chris Harris would never let you down. Yeah, certainly his attitude would be perfect, and it's a weird one that would never let me down. Whenever I put him in any heat, was Simon Lambert. Simon Lambert would never ever let me down.
Yeah.
You know, he would want the heat, but he would. It was almost like he was privileged to be in that position for you. That you'd want him to be in that position. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the amount of times that I put him in Heat 1 where he had a tapes, you know, a tapes offence, and I put him out in Heat 1 and he's from the inside gates. And we always used to say, Simon will win this. He'll go out and win it. He used to pop out the start and he'll be gone. You know, and so he's one that, you know, would never ever let me down, really. And I was pretty confident putting him in, you know, that was the case.
And unless Simon Lambert, I hope you're watching, unless he's riding at Plymouth, of course, he's not very good around there. But although the Scorpions did win at Plymouth last week, I didn't want to mention that to Ben Barker. Good evening, Simon, if you're watching. Robbo, what about yourself? Any recollections of teammates who always impress you by their ability to cope with the pressure of a last seat decider?
It's gone back to my Coventry days. There'll be people like Greg Hancock and Billy Hamill. Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, they were at the top of the game at the time. Billy was world champion 96, wasn't it? Something like that. Greg 97, and I went back to the Bs in 98, and they were both still there. So we had 98, 99, 2000, and however long it was. And them guys, they were just, you know, outstanding, and their team riding was unbelievable. It was so good to watch. They knew each other so well. They could predict where each other would go. They would swap positions. You know, one would be on the inside one lap, and then the next lap that person's on the outside. But they knew they were going to do it. They could just see each other doing it, and they were so good. And obviously, they were very, very quick. And like I said, they were at the top of the game. They were world class GP riders at the time, and it was great.
Team X side. What about you, Crabby? Any name some names down the years, Crabby, of.
Well, the only thing, well, not so much riders as such, but like what we used to do at Stoke, a little bit naughty, really. But if it comes to last seat, and you know, Stoke starts, gate 3 was always pretty hard to get off. So if they'd got 3 or whatever, we used to jump on tractor and drag a load of ball bearings over the gates where maybe the away lads were. Just try to get a bit of advantage for ourselves, and also people could, the riders could see what you were doing, and it used to get them et up and fired up, and then they'd maybe lose a little bit of concentration what they were going out there to do, because they were more bothered about coming running and giving you a bollocking, if you like, you know. Things like that, but I don't know. I don't know what I'd have to say, to be honest with you. Your 2 top scorers. I mean, I fully understand what Robbo says. Greg and Billy and them Americans, they were so involved with each other, weren't they? All of them. They were very good team riders. The Americans were very much for each other. And I couldn't really say who would be a last seat pair for myself. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know.
Just say yourself, Nigel. Show that self-confidence. Nigel Crabtree.
No, I was never confident. Never overconfident, Derek. Never. No.
So the R360 Speed was another fascinating insight and discussion about something that we probably all take for granted, right? But you can only imagine from a rider's perspective the pressure of lining up at the tapes under such a high pressure situation. But hopefully that's given you a little bit more insight from those who have been there and done it and got the t-shirt. If you can remember, or even in current day, if you'd like to nominate your local track hero as being someone who can handle those high pressure occasions, then please do drop us a line. Always pleased to hear from you. And if you like that conversation, give us a thumbs up on YouTube. All those thumbs up help that YouTube algorithm. Thank you very much. All right, part 2 of your messages shared with or submitted to 360 Speedway. If you do want to submit a message, just empty your head, just share some thoughts, long or short form. Look, just choose your preferred social media platform: TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. It doesn't matter. Even email or WhatsApp, of course. Dedicated WhatsApp number 0333 772 4046. The main thing is, please take just a few moments, even seconds, get in touch and submit a question that we can put to the guys, or else just share a message or your view and opinion on anything Speedway related. As has Stuart M from Kettering. Hello to you, Stuart. I'm a bees fan and still hope a new hive can be found. See what you did there, Stuart, for us. I travel with my brother and nephew to get our race fix. Thanks for the Speedway chat. It's enjoyable. Well, it's enjoyable to do 360 Speedway, and it's thoroughly enjoyable to get some interaction. So thank you, Stuart, for taking time to get in touch. I do sense that there's a strong support for Coventry Bees and the return of them to a new hive, or even a redeveloped hive at Brandon. Who knows? And I do get the sense that in terms of all of the resting clubs that are out there, the prospects of resurrecting something at Coventry are probably amongst the highest. I just get that sense. I think there's a lot of support, a lot of capability, a lot of talented people behind the scenes who are pushing in the right direction and getting some positive outcomes as well at local authority level. So good luck to the Bees and all you Bees fans out there. Stuart, keep trackside, keep taking in some Speedway action with your brother and nephew. Samantha L from Sutton has emailed, since the Panthers stopped racing, I have made a few trips with family to King's Lynn. It makes me realise what we've lost at the showground. Hi, Samantha. First of all, good that you and the family are haven't been lost to the sport. Yes, Peterborough, your hometown club is resting, as I like to say at the moment. And Carol Johnson and some of the other guys behind the scenes are obviously doing their best to bring the Panthers back in some new form at some new venue, and I'm sure that will happen at some point. I think what you mean, Samantha, if I'm not mistaken, is you've been to King's Lynn, you have enjoyed it, and it's the spectacle of the Speedway and the excitement that has made you realise what you've lost locally. But good on you for giving the Stars some support, and fingers crossed that we get some positive news out of the Panthers camp before too much longer. Rick B from Nuneaton has been in touch via WhatsApp. Hello Rick, thanks for doing so. Speedway now needs leadership and strategy more than it ever has. Probably need paid for business consultancy to reset the compass. A very profound message, Rick, but I'm completely with you. We've alluded already in this episode to a pivotal, a significant winter as the British Speedway, all the respective promoters and the BSPL at the helm get their heads together and I guess plan some sort of resurgence. Ideally, we don't just want the sport to take stock and close the barriers and protect the sport. Of course, we need that to happen, but strategy absolutely has got to be, I think, at the heart of what's discussed. It can't just be a year-to-year thing. There's got to be a longer-term viewpoint. Within the sport of speedway within Britain, there are lots of people with business acumen. I'm not going to name names, but you will know who they are. To a greater or lesser extent, there's lots of business-minded people within speedway. They know the sport inside out. They know how to run a business inside out. And maybe to your point, speedway, in terms of branding and promotion and all that good stuff, might benefit from some paid-for business consultancy. It's an expensive business, but it might just pay for itself handsomely. So thank you, Rick. Bob A from Reading has been in touch by email, and Bob says, fascinating to hear former riders still being so passionate on the sport. It clearly comes through in each discussion. Enjoy the mix of new and old too. So thank you, Bob. I believe you're complimenting 360 Speedway in the sort of structure and the format that we have. It's great for me to work with some of the guys. I'm not going to name the names. You know all the regular faces. They know the sport inside out. They've been there, done it, got the T-shirt, and even though they might no longer be so actively involved, they keep a close watching brief on Speedway, and in some respects it doesn't change that much. Under the covers it doesn't change that much. But pleased, Bob, that you are enjoying the variety of discussion and, as you say, a mix of the new and the old too. And finally, for episode 13, the final message being surfaced this week, Nick T from Humberside. It hurts me to know that my grandsons don't know what it's like to support a local side. Still plenty of Vikings fans who'd back a return. # Hull needs Speedway. Nick, thank you so much for writing in. And I mentioned earlier about Coventry having a vibrant support to this day, and I see that on social media, as I do for Hull. The Hull needs Speedway. There's a very active, a very vibrant, a very well supported social media presence for Hull Speedway. I don't know that area in terms of any aspirations to or any determination or drive by any individual or consortiums to try and bring Speedway back to Humberside or to Hull itself. But I do sense that there would be an immediate appetite and a lot of passion, a lot of support to back such a venture. So Nick, if you're aware, or if anyone out there listening is aware of any push, any individuals who might be looking to bring Speedway back to Humberside, I'd be delighted to receive more information about it. So that completes all of your messages for episode 13. Once again, thanks to those of you who took time to write in, whether you were featured or not. Please don't let that put you off trying again, and thank you very much.